Hi, I'm Nick, and this is Human Limits, a podcast about what we are truly capable of, the limitations we hit, and whether those limitations are real or something we can move past. Today, I want to talk about something that was bothering me for a long time, a topic of psychological limitations, self-imposed limitations that surround us. And to talk about it, I have here today Daphne Christofides, psychotherapist, sex and couple therapist, with a practice here in Barcelona that's called Love Mind Therapy, right? Thanks a lot for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for coming and helping me to untangle or just to keep this conversation flowing about this topic. As I told you earlier today, I don't expect answers here. I don't expect us to find answers to any questions. Rather to keep the conversation about the topics that are important for us flowing. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Thank you. So, the thing is, most of us move around surrounded by the rules about who we are, about what we can and cannot do, without even questioning these rules.
Right.
And what's even more interesting, that we tend to defend these rules when someone points out to them and question if they are needed.
Right.
Yeah, we jump on defending the things that actually keep us bounded, keep us limited.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you, in your practice or in your life, have you seen a lot of that?
A lot of that. Yeah. The thing is that it makes a lot of sense, but the moment that we set those limitations, they're really to protect ourselves. They're in a moment where we need to do it because it helps us survive somehow. It might not be a life and death survival, but it's what our nervous system picks up on, that it keeps us safer to do this. So we set these limitations or we set these mechanisms in place. And what happens is that we don't update them over time. They stay there, they become our norm. And years later, they're still there, but our life has changed, our surrounding has changed. And yet we still have those limitations in place that now no longer protect us, but actually limit us.
And
yeah,
does it mean they all come from the childhood, from the early days?
Normally, I'd say normally. I don't think we can say that it's only from there. I think we can set limitations in our adulthood also, depending on our life experiences, but definitely the stronger ones, the more innate ones, the ones that are really, really integrated in our lifestyle usually come from childhood.
So this inner voice, one of the functions of it is reminding us about what our limits are, right?
I think it's quite subconscious. I don't think we realize it most of the time.
No, but this internal conversation that's always flowing, at least in my head,
right?
It's the voices from the past,
Yeah,
be parents or friends or meaningful characters from my life,
yeah,
reminding me of who I am.
right.
Yeah.
That is the reason why you're talking about this conflict or inner voice. I feel is because when those limitations were set, right, it felt safer to set them. It was avoiding what felt dangerous. So having them felt safe. And now to change them or get rid of them or see even that, even if you consciously, cognitively see that maybe they don't serve you anymore, it's scary to let them go. Because for a long time, they've been protecting you. Or for a long time, they've been your safe haven in a way. So even if you know it's harmful, it's also something that's familiar. And familiar, we often choose familiar even if it's more harmful than doing something new, because the new is uncertain. And humans don't deal well with uncertainty, because uncertainty means that there's a vast majority of options of what could go wrong, of what could happen, and that's terrifying. So very often we choose to stay with something that at least we know what it's like, even though it's not ideal, instead of changing it.
So it's a threefold. First of all, realizing that what I'm telling myself or what I believe in is not a real limitation, or is not real at all. And then working towards getting past it. First admitting, okay, that's my limit. This is the ceiling of heat. Then realizing, okay, that might not be real, and then allowing myself to grow over it.
I wouldn't say that it's not real. It feels real, right? It's been there for a while and it feels real. I think this is very much related to the stories that we tell ourselves, right? And the stories we've been told that are attached to these limitations. So the story, for example, that either I'm too sensitive or I'm too much or I'm avoidant, things like this that have defined us for a long time. And at some point, it was better for us to be that way. So this story we tell ourselves becomes embodied in our body. It's not just a cognitive story we tell ourselves. It becomes our whole reality. So it feels very real and it feels true, right? So it's not only about changing, say, the words of the story and just cognitively saying, okay, this is the story I want to identify with. It's about actually creating a somatic experience with that. So we need new somatic experiences or life experiences that are going to go against the older story we used to tell ourselves, right? And we need other ones that are going to reinforce or confirm the new story we want to identify with ourselves, right? If I've always felt insecure and now I want to feel confident, we need experiences where we feel we behaved confidently. It doesn't just change just in our mind cognitively, right?
Okay.
So these experiences then add to the new story we want to tell ourselves, and then this helps sort of get past or evolve from those older limitations that were there. If that makes sense.
That makes all the sense. The tricky part for me, how do we create these experiences? It's sounds like this is the key to get out of the cage, but it requires a real life experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah?
It requires work. This is what you can work in therapy, for example, and especially if there's a somatic approach to therapy, which I feel is better, because talking can get us up to the point of, realizing certain things or being aware of certain things. But through somatic work, we get to experience a different outcome in our body, which then helps us create new life experiences. And just in that moment, even, it's a new experience, feeling something different in our body, right? So by doing this work, or even if it's not through therapy, but one consciously wanting to move towards a new direction and a new story, right? It's about deciding to behave differently in a moment where normally you would always behave a certain way.
Is facing your fears a part of this approach? So if I'm afraid of public speaking, about talking on a podcast, for example,
Yeah.
so just by doing things that scare you.
Yeah, it's I would say that's a big part of it, because what we want at the end of the day is different outcomes. So if someone's afraid of conflict, okay, this is a very common one. If you're afraid of conflict, consciously choosing not to avoid it and getting into it, but in a way where ideally there's a different outcome to what you were expecting. Say it doesn't end in abandonment, or it doesn't end in a huge fight. And maybe you have a conflict that's actually resolved, or even if it's not resolved, there's a kind conversation. Meanwhile, you're talking about a difficult topic. That already is giving you a different experience. Because if your limitation is, if you grew up in a home where there was a lot of aggressiveness, or it was chaos, or there was a lot of conflict, so it makes sense that you learn to avoid it then because it kept you safer, right? But if you continue this, say when you're 35, and when there's a kind conversation, say from your partner, bringing up a topic, but already you feel like shutting down, it means that those mechanisms have not been updated, right? And that avoidance is still very much there. So by choosing to go through it and maybe finding resources that can help us get through it, and ideally having a different outcome, this is what I meant earlier in that this supports the new story, right? That we want to tell ourselves that I can face conflict, and conflict can end in a more amicable way, and it doesn't have to end in rejection or abandonment. So this way we're supporting the new story and we're contradicting the older one. Yeah.
Some therapy methods work around relieving bad traumatic experiences in a safe environment. You mentioned somatic approach. Can you talk a little bit about it?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm very familiar with it.
Right. There's different types. The one that I'm trained in is called sensory motor psychotherapy. And it's still talk therapy. But what we do is we focus more in the moment, in session, let's say, what may be coming up in your body, like body sensations that you have when you talk about a specific traumatic experience, or then what emotions might come up, what thoughts might come up. So it's kind of like we follow that path depending on what our nervous system is bringing up, right? And by following that path, it normally takes us to the root, which tends to be a memory of something that happened. Yeah, basically. But this takes its time. And there's people that are more open to it and people that have more defense mechanisms in place and are more resistant. And this isn't even a conscious thing. Someone could be so willing to get to the root of it, but their nervous system has learned to be very protective and has so many walls up that it's hard to, it just takes longer, right? And it's super important to respect our nervous system's pace, because if we don't and we force it, our nervous system will just shut down and it's going to say, you're not coming past this.
Oh, wow.
We're not going anywhere, right? Because our nervous system's number one goal is to keep us alive. And I know that sounds a bit drastic in the world we live in now. It's not like you're going to die normally, but it's still the way that it wants to keep you safe. So if it perceives that someone is trying to touch a traumatic wound that you have, it doesn't want that to happen. So it's going to do whatever it can to avoid it.
Wow.
So we need to go with its pace. We need to work with it.
It feels unfair that it's all happening inside of my own body, my own brain, but I have no control over it.
Yeah, that's the difference I feel between the nervous system and our brain or memory. Because our nervous system remembers everything we went through. Our memory doesn't, which is actually a good thing, I would say.
Yeah.
But our nervous system remembers, so small triggers that relate to some, I say traumatic, we can, that's a whole other topic of, we should say
Yeah.
how often we use this word. but it could be just a bad experience or something unpleasant. Our nervous system picks up on very, very subtle triggers. And if it gets triggered, it behaves a certain way that we're not even aware of.
I'm the one who loves to rush things. I would have big issues with respecting my nervous system. That's why I want to explore with you the ways out of the cage. The working title for this episode with you is there is the cage with no lock. The cage has no lock. So the way I see this cage, that everyone walks around with invisible, probably very flexible cage around ourselves that's full of windows and doors and the ways to get out or to push the limits of that cage. But we are just missing the tools to do it. So what you mentioned before is going through the experiences, but with a new outcome. So if at some point in the early childhood, I was loved when I was speaking publicly, and they told me that speaking publicly is traumatic and I should avoid it. I go out in front of the audience that will support me. Yeah. Or just go in front of any audience as long as it's needed and to get this confirmation that it can go well.
You could do, but it can be gradual. So planning it to go well is a good way to start. Why not? Because it will give you that experience that you're sort of looking for. So it feels much safer, right? And once you do that, then you have a new experience of, okay, it doesn't always end in ridicule, for example. Still, the experience of the ridicule is heavier so far because it's been there for years. It was a very, very bad experience. So it weighs more. But the more you have new experiences, the more weight you're adding also on the other side. And eventually, what we want is for that to become your new norm.
So there's an internal scale.
I like to think
shift.
so. Yeah, it helps me visualize it that way.
Okay, but what about the storytell approach? What if, do you believe in our capacity of changing ourselves through the internal work? Maybe it comes from the lazy point of view, but I was impressed about the stories about people changing their lives just by telling themselves new stories about who they are. Yeah. Getting in front of the mirror in the morning and telling, no, I'm not a college drop-off who's earning 15 euros an hour. No, I'm someone who's been through the tough times and is on the path to something great. So what about working with the limitations? What if I run the positive scenarios right inside of my head, or I just look at the situation that set that limitation in my childhood and tell another story about it. Yes, I was looked at back then, but who were the judges? Who were the people laughing at me? Yeah, and what I was actually doing there.
Yeah. That's a super great first approach, because what you're talking about now is widening the lens and seeing the bigger picture. So it's not just your experience in that moment, which wasn't great, but it is seeing, okay, who was there? Who actually laughed? Was it everyone, or was it 5 people out of 50, let's say? Or afterwards, what happened afterwards? Did someone come and console you? Which is also a nice experience to have, to feel that support after feeling vulnerable, and then someone comes to give you support. You can also focus on that experience. I think that's great. And as far as just the new story you're telling yourself, like you were saying, say in the mirror, I think it starts as a story, as a cognitive thing, like words you're telling yourself, but really you're embodying them. right? Because first of all, if you say this out loud, it's not just a thought. You're hearing it, so you're using more of your senses. It's different when you just think something and our mind goes very fast and we don't really realize, or we have thousands of thoughts in a day and we don't pay that much attention to them. But when you say it out loud, first of all, it's slower. And second of all, you're hearing it through your ears, right? So you're perceiving, your brain is hearing it from a different angle also, which makes a difference. And then if you have, say, I don't know, some kind of gesture to go along with it, or a body posture that you're also, you know how they say the Superman sort of posture? When they say you want to feel confident, a lot of people do this, say, before an interview. Yeah. And they stand like this with your head held high and your hands here. So it's like you're feeling big and tall and confident, right? That creates an experience in your body that's more than just, I can do this. You can say, I can do this. I do like this, and say, I can do this. Okay. Right? So it makes a difference. It adds to the experience, to the experience in your body. So the more you do this, the more you hear yourself say these things to yourself, it's very likely that then when you're out in the world, in your everyday life, there will come a moment where you might choose differently than how you used to, right? And that's how you start to have those experiences that reinforce this new story that you're telling yourself.
I understand how in the early days, in the childhood, we might learn from almost any situation that we shouldn't stick out, that we let me find the proper words for this question. It's important. So as the kids, we often process events ending up in a traumatic way. I don't know if the word often is really proper here. But as you mentioned earlier, most of our limitations, they come from the childhood. This is when we don't have proper understanding of the society, we don't have language for many things. But then again, it also happens in our 20s, 30s, and after that. So what I'm trying to ask here, as a grown-up, what should I know to avoid building unnecessary new limitations around myself?
That's a hard question to have like a very clear answer. Because I think as you were talking, I was just thinking, first of all, there's just so many factors that come into play. For example, a cultural factor, right? You were saying how you were maybe taught not to stand out, right? But that's probably cultural for you. In other cultures, they're told to stand out because that's how they get noticed. So that's what's meant to be successful. So it really depends on the messages that you received and on the society that you grew up in, right? Afterwards, you grow up and then you see new societies and you see new cultures, or you hear about them, and that makes you question the certain things. So there's that factor. There's also the factor of your specific family, your nuclear family, say your parents and your siblings, and the dynamics and the systems that were created in your family, and what was considered okay or not okay. And these factors are, you can definitely change them. But it's hard because they've been there since the beginning and they've been given to you from your parents who, they taught you everything at first. And then it also depends on your own life experiences. So then we go through adolescence, and then there's all these hormones and all the society sort of pressure and wanting to be liked. So here is when we're normally least ourselves because we're so afraid. right? And then after that, it's also about wanting to, no, even then, about wanting to fit in. That's always there, however old you are. Then it can depend on, say, your life choices if you move country and what that culture's like or what that society's like, or the career you want to go into and how you need to behave around a certain environment. So, yeah, there's a lot of different factors. I don't think there's an answer to how to avoid it. I think it's very subjective to each one's experience.
Also, now that you were talking, I thought maybe avoiding is not a correct approach. Maybe they don't occur out of nothing. As you mentioned before, they protect us.
Right. They're not your enemy.
Yeah.
It's not your enemy. Like our nervous system, at the end of the day, it creates, even, for example, like the critical side that I think we probably all have, right? There's moments where we might be critical of ourselves. We're normally our harshest critic, right? And the criticism or the critical part of us at the end of the day is born in order to protect us. Normally, it's so that we don't humiliate ourselves, or it's so that we don't go overboard with something, or that we're more aware of what are the risks, right? So it's the function, the sort of the underlying reason is always a good one, really.
Yeah.
So it's just being aware of how it serves you now or doesn't serve you now and how you want to change it and adapt it.
So then, two last questions I have about it, straight out from the top of my head. If we say they're not our enemies, they serve their purpose, they protect us, but it's good to be aware about them, right?
Right.
How? How do I learn what is real or what is self-imposed? How to know myself better in order to understand what's old mechanics that I don't need anymore,
Right.
and what is still needed. What should I, if not protect, but at least not try to get rid of?
Yeah. So on an individual level, I think that you can feel it, say, when you have experiences that are unpleasant, or there's some sort of conflict with someone, or they said something to you and it didn't sit well with you. So that's a moment maybe to take that and reflect on it and see what did this bring up for you? What's here for me and why is it here for me, right? And then, say, for example, in relationships, you can also, this might be romantic relationships, but it might also be any kind of relationship, like a friendship or a family relationship. But we get feedback from the people we interact with. So say in a relationship, if someone is complaining about something or they're telling us something that maybe they don't like, it doesn't mean from the get-go that they're right, but we can maybe take that and reflect on it and see, okay, what's going on here, or try to see the other person's point of view and how it feels for us. You know, this is where, for example, we might realize some mechanisms like, say, a parent-child dynamic in a romantic relationship, right? And we realize that, oh, maybe we're looking for something that we actually didn't get from our parents and we're now needing it from our partner. And then our partner also gets that role of being more of a parent. And then this doesn't work, right? So it's realizing that each of them are in a role that doesn't belong to them for this relationship, and how they would each like it to be. So it's like you kind of feed off each other's needs and complaints and find out what the middle point is or what works for each of you.
Okay, good. So basically, if something doesn't work smoothly, or there are certain edgy things about situations, it means it's worth looking into, and see where it originates from.
Right.
Okay. So if I'm telling myself a story, means I can come up with anything?
Well, I mean, if you wanted to really if you want yourself to put it into practice, it has to be something that feels realistic to you, right?
But if my reality is is doomed, if I'm working from the point where I want to escape from, I want to change this reality. So what's real for me in this moment is not what I wanna bring on. So
maybe it's a matter of taking it, like making smaller steps, smaller accomplishments,
not
so
like
they
the
feel
new life.
closer. Yeah, as in maybe you don't feel like you're gonna go from, I don't know, not having a job to being the president of the United States, you know? So it might just be, okay, let me get a job where I work at a coffee shop, or then I might get, you know, this kind of thing, or then I live with someone that feels good to me, or, you know, it's making smaller choices that feel more tangible.
We have a pattern now, because in the previous episode with Mitch, I asked him about taking care of your body, health, mind, and how much work is
Right.
and how do you approach all of it. And he gave the same answer. Start with drinking enough water.
Right.
Once it's in your routine, make the next.
Because this way, it's more tangible. It's more possible for you to do it. It feels more closer, and then it's rewarding because you're like, oh, okay, I did it. I made it.
Yeah.
So then that motivates you a little bit for the next one, and then the next one, and the more you do, the more motivated you feel. But if you're looking directly toward the angle, which is up there, and it's so far away, it feels like you'll never get there. So you lose motivation in the meantime, quite early on, actually, because it just feels huge.
Yeah. If there is one unlimited part of my personality, it's imagination. If I need to tell myself a story, it's gonna be a wild story.
Okay.
That's what makes it a bit challenging for me. I'm not built for gradual work. Yeah. If I wanna do 100 push-ups, I need to do 100 push-ups next week, not next year.
Right, but here, because I was thinking about this earlier, what we can also talk about is resources that can help you with this. It might be that for you is really hard because you never learned how to, but we can find resources that help us, that come both from within ourselves or external.
Like what?
So a resource, for example, could be a person that you know can motivate you in a way, but it also might be a stone that means something for you, and you're just holding it in your hand, and that gives you like this energy and strength that you need. Then it's about, there can be somatic resources that are like breathing or grounding or soothing sort of behaviors like this one, or on your legs. And so it's like you're soothing your nervous system down, and it helps you sort of approach it in a way that feels easier.
Yeah. Some common limitations and fears. I believe you keep saying the same patterns in people, more or less, correct? Would you name some that you have to work with the most?
I feel like the biggest one, it's hard to, there's a lot, and it's a very subjective thing, but I think one of the most common ones is not feeling like you can be yourself and be loved. Right? I think
that
this is a very, right. Yeah. And the way society is built does not help with that at all. Actually, it does quite the opposite, I think. But then that's a whole nother topic that has to do with, you know, consumerism and what the society feels is more beneficial. But if we feel more insecure, it works better to buy more things or look for more solutions and all of that. If we're feeling good with ourselves, we don't need that much. So that's not really promoted. And just there's also the side of humans that can sometimes be quite dark, and that adds to our just not feeling worthy enough, or feeling okay to be ourselves and feel accepted. I feel like that's the biggest one.
super interesting. I would
Yeah.
talk about the society part in this,
Right.
and why society is so cruel. Yeah,
Right.
it feels
I know.
supporting each other makes much more sense.
I don't know why we can't be all just kinder to
Yeah.
each other. I don't know why that becomes so difficult. And truly, when it comes from a place where, okay, let me put it this way. I think humans are not built to be solitary. We're not built to be alone.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, innately from thousands of years ago, if you were alone or if you were isolated from the tribe, you died.
Mm-hmm.
So innately, we have a need for connection. We always need connection. So, and this is what one of the biggest fears is. The underlying fears of so many behaviors, of so many dynamics, is the fear of losing connection.
Mm-hmm.
And by default, the fear of being alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's in most places. These fears are very, very present. Yeah.
Maybe we can talk more about it in another round.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels worth exploring.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here, back to our topic. You live in your practice is in very multicultural city, so you had a chance to work with people from different cultural backgrounds.
Yeah, a lot of them.
What would you say about the different types of limitations that come from the cultural background rather than the personal one?
Yeah. So I think there's some common, say, universal fears or limitations can be those of fear of rejection or need for belonging or fear of being alone. But then the cultural side to it is how we express emotions, how we express vulnerability, desire, sexuality. Those can vary a lot. And then in couples also, when it's multicultural or in the same culture, some of the things that can vary is that people from the same culture they can make assumptions that are automatic. You don't need to really think about them.
Yeah, and that they're truthful. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. They're
They're gonna work.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they have these sort of defaults of on family roles or gender roles or
Expectations.
yeah, exactly. Whereas multicultural couples don't have that. And that can often make them clash. So the bright side to this is that it kind of forces them to have deeper conversations earlier on in the relationship, and also to make these assumptions more explicit, right? If they need to be defined, you can't just assume. You might assume, but then it might lead to certain conflicts, and sometimes it happens, and the members of the couple don't even realize that this is really what it's based on. This is why communication is key, so each person can realize, okay, what's really behind this. For example, if you come from a culture that supports individuality and independence within a couple, and if you come from a culture that supports the collective, right? If one member understands love as merging and the other member understands love as supporting independence, they're both probably going to feel frustrated because it won't feel right. So one will probably feel abandoned and the other one will feel controlled.
And the trap here, they don't even think they need to bring this up, right?
Right.
Because these are defaults. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Is there an answer to that? How to avoid limiting myself even more when I'm trying to evolve and get better?
Right. So that's an interesting one because it doesn't work when basically it becomes just another strategy to avoid risk. Right? You can be going to therapy for years. You can develop the therapy language. You can do courses here and there. You can read books. The thing is that if you don't do the work, or if you don't get to apply a lot of the things that you learn, you don't really evolve or you don't create change. It's about learning about it, but then, say, having that difficult conversation that you've been avoiding, or setting that boundary that has been really hard to do, or tolerating sort of not feeling good, right? It's kind of staying with it and having those new experiences that we were talking about, so you have different outcomes, and that leads to change. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you so much. I think we covered at least the basics on the psychology and self-imposed limitations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on this.
It's been great. Thanks.
Thank you, Daphne.